Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lunatics Radio Hour podcast. My name is Abby Brinker, and today I am sitting here with my friend, Alex Goldman.
Hey, hey, hey.
Welcome back, Alex.
Oh, it's so good to be back.
And today we are talking about a topic that I knew you would be perfect to talk to about, because as friends, we have often talked about this. I think we both have a little bit of a different and unique perspective on some of the vast history that is associated with the Wizard of Oz. So I'm really excited to talk through this with you.
I'm excited to be here. Let's do it.
I want your perspective on this right away because I have always had this seed in the back of my head that the production of the movie from 1939, The Wizard of Oz, was riddled with all of these horrifying things. For example, there was a rumor that came to me in the 90s as a child that you could see a member of the cast or a crew or whatever, different versions of the rumor said a different thing, committing suicide in the movie.
Hanging themselves. Yes.
You heard that too.
Oh, absolutely. I went through and I paused the
As
video.
did I, yes.
Just trying to make out what anyone was talking about.
And I thought I saw it.
Yeah, I remember that lore, right? And then I remember it could have been a bird who was in the background. Mm-hmm. And honestly, after pausing it for many, many times, I feel like I didn't see either thing.
Well, we will reveal today what it was.
Oh, how exciting.
But how fascinating that this rumor about this movie from the 30s came to, it's such a funny thing. And I'll say this, there is a lot of dark in like a abusive production sense of the word that we're going to talk about with the movie. We're also going to talk about some hard topics in today's episode, including some abusive conditions, especially centered around food and dieting and the use of pills to control people. There's also, anyone who follows us on Patreon knows this, I did a whole series last year when I read the original book, which is a delightful read. It's a children's novel. We're going to talk a lot about it today, but so much in it is so creepy and freaky and like horrifying and like, again, like a delightful way. I did a whole audio series on that on Patreon, but I just find there to be so much around early Oz in different forms that's worth talking about on this show and feels relevant to this show. Even if you might think, oh, The Wizard of Oz isn't horror, there's still some dark stuff to get into. But then also, of course, when you think about Elphaba, which I know way more people in 2025 are familiar with that character than previously because the movie has had such a vast, response. And she's a witch. And it's really cool to talk about and think about how this character is 125 years old. I don't know, to think about how her origins versus where she is now and how popular she is.
Yeah,
no pun.
I do feel like sort of the central question that even Glinda asks in the movie, and I think she asks it in the book too, are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? Yeah. That speaks volumes even. I feel like the book opened a door to good witches existing and being part of the conversation. But to your point about the movie being sort of riddled with all of this, abuse allegations or whatever we want to talk about there. It's so interesting when the central motif for the piece is good and evil, wickedness, and all of that.
Yes.
It makes you want to look deeper into what's happening and see, finding examples of it, I guess, is what I'm saying.
100%. And also, if you really want to get dark with it, which we will by the end of this, there's such similarity, I think, to what's happening in the United States right now. Mm-hmm. And listen, I'm not trying to minimize it by comparing it to a Broadway musical, but truly, there is so much similarity to what's happening in the United States right now. And I think you leave Wicked, in a sense, and you feel empowered, I hope, to question authority. And to be aware that, like, to your point of, like, what's good and evil, like, we have to be somewhat fluid as we learn more about things. And, and it's just, like, a dark time, and it feels really relevant when you think about what we're going through right now as a country.
Yeah, and things aren't binary, right?
Right.
Like, and that's something that I think even Wicked, which takes the emotional stakes of Wizard of Oz and and raises them.
Yeah.
I think we can agree
Yeah.
on that for sure. But it also sort of colors people differently. But it does, right? It sort of fills in shades of between
Yes.
that aren't just, you're not only good, you're not only bad.
Yeah, I do think that's something that feels missing right now from us as a country. It's like you're on this side or that side. And the truth is, we're all people who have been consuming media in echo chambers. And, I think the more we humanize people, the better. Yeah, 100%. So anyway, we're going to get into all of it. We're going to talk about everything from the original books, which came out in 1900, to Wicked in its film versions, which... the second one is now very recently in theaters. So here we go. Let's get into it. Starting off with our sources. A biography article by Colin Burtman. Judy Garland filmed The Wizard of Oz under grueling circumstances. A History.com article, 7 Surprising Facts About the Wizard of Oz movie by Elizabeth Yuko. The Dark Secrets Surrounding the Wizard of Oz by Colin Russell for Far Out magazine. A Time article, Was the Wizard of Oz Cursed? The Truth Behind the Dark Stories About the Judy Garland Classic, a Smithsonian National Museum of American History article by Ryan Lintelman, The Technicolor World of Oz, a Far Out magazine article by Jacob Simmons, The Story Behind the Shot, The Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy's Technicolor Dream. And of course, as always, we will link all of these sources in the description of this episode so you can check out the source material as well. In 1900, L Frank Baum's novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was released. The original book was famously illustrated by W. W. Denslow, and the illustrations are quite striking, and I highly recommend you take a look.
Very memorable.
Very memorable, and actually, I believe you might know this, because I am just going to say a fact that might not be true. Some of the characters in Wicked the Musical are inspired by those illustrations, I believe.
The costumes, at least. Yeah.
It's really cool when you read the book and you're like, oh, I saw that in the play.
Yeah, notably, it's the One Short Day people.
Those characters.
The big, like the kooky characters who come out. Yeah.
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was a children's novel, and it's a pretty fast and fun read, which I recommend. You read the first few books.
Yeah, I did have the box set of them, but I can only confidently remember 3. The first 3.
That's fair. I read 1, and it was, like I said at the beginning, super fun. And it's fast. Like, you can read it as an adult in...
very enjoyable.
A sitting or 2, yeah. The novel tells the story pretty much as we know it, but there are some really fun and freaky deviations. And I think that's honestly why I had so much fun reading the novel, because we know the story so well. Like, regardless of what age you are, if you know the movie so well, you know Wicked, a lot of people know Wicked. And so when you read the original, you're like, oh, I see how we got where we are, but there's some really fun stuff that's a little bit different. And it's like very charming to read through those little original, it's not a deviation because it's the source material, but like these very quirky little beats that don't exist anywhere else.
Yeah. And if you're like me and you like when you find something you're really into, you have to know every little detail about it. When you go back to the books name a more iconic movie that has survived the test of time. Like everyone knows The Wizard of Oz.
Truly.
But then all of a sudden there's these books where there's all these little details that aren't in the movie for whatever reason. And you feel like you're finding Easter eggs that you'd never even knew existed. Yeah.
And one of an example of that, which I don't know why this is the thing that stuck with me, because there's some really weird moments. But this one, there's this chapter near the end of the novel where Dorothy and, crew stumble upon this, I think it's called like the Dainty China Village.
Yeah, right.
And it's literally like porcelain people that are made out of china, plates, kind of that kind of material, like porcelain. And something happens and they like crack someone, and it's horrifying in a way where you're like, wow, this was a porcelain being that you like shattered and broke the leg off of because you were incompetent, not paying attention. I have so many questions about the logistics of a porcelain figure that's walking and moving around.
There is a lot of casual violence in The Wizard of Oz. It's something that I have thought, we open with a house landing on a lady, right? Like
True.
that.
True.
That's just the beginning, and then there are little bits. It seems like everywhere she goes, there's little things that just are off. Like when she goes to the China village, and someone gets cracked, which sounds horrible.
Yeah. The other one that again is like burned into my brain is that when the wizard is giving the brain, now I'm gonna mess it up, but like the brain and the heart, there's like these surgical scenes that happen where he like puts things into their bodies, and it's quite intense. And I did this on Patreon. I like read from the chapter because it's all public domain now, but it's just like, yeah, to your point, it's like way more violent, or way much more like, and then I opened up his body and put a fake brain in there because I was a fake and you're like, oh, that wouldn't happen in a children's book today.
And you can see how it missed the cut of the movie. They were just like, I guess we don't need to do that.
Yeah, that might upset the audience. The first novel was so incredibly successful that Baum went on to write 13 sequels. So there's 14 books in total. There was a time when Baum wanted to branch out and write other things, but nothing sold as well as the Oz series, so he kept going back to it as a way to kind of keep making money, of course. But what inspired him to write such fanciful and whimsical material? His son would later say that his father was largely inspired from his own life. We do know that growing up, Baum had nightmares about a scarecrow chasing him across an open field.
Oh, spooky. That is scary.
Yeah, I would write a book about it too.
Yeah.
And just before the scarecrow would grasp for his neck, he would dissolve. Like the scarecrow would just dissolve back into hay.
That is... I'm going to have a nightmare about that now.
In the early 1880s, there was also a fire during a production of Baum's play Matches, which is ironic, I suppose. A spark from a kerosene lantern started the blaze. So some people also point to this as inspiration for the scarecrow's biggest fear, which of course is fire.
Mm-hmm.
The play The Wizard of Oz debuted on June 16th, 1902 at the Chicago Grand Opera House, marketed as a musical extravaganza. So this is a musical version of The Wizard of Oz, not of Wicked, just to clarify for everybody. Baum drafted the script and is credited as the book writer, but ghostwriter Glenn McDonough was brought on to shape and polish and, really refine the story. A lot of the original music was written by Paul Tahines. The original cast boasted two popular comedy stars of the time, Fred Stone and David C. Montgomery. By the end of January 1903, it made its way to Broadway. So even from its original, right, the first book came out in 1900. By 3 years later, there was a Broadway show.
They needed more. The people, they needed it.
We can't get enough ever.
No.
So are you familiar with the Wizard of Oz play? Have you ever listened to an episode of Lunatics Radio Hour and thought, man, I'd love to wear a shirt or carry a tote bag that represents my interest in this very niche topic?
I know I have.
If you're in the market for a doppelganger-themed tank top or a Bloody Mary tote bag, we've got you covered. Head to lunaticsproject.com and click on merch to browse our haunting and highly specific merch store.
Oh, Abby. I did play the Scarecrow in, my senior class video was The Wizard of Oz, meaning we went around and did different scenes of The Wizard of Oz in my high school.
Okay.
And
Fun.
I played the Scarecrow in that.
Okay. Okay, that's super fun. So you're familiar.
Yes.
And do you know, is that, I don't know, you know how plays work more than I know. Would that be like the same material as this from 1903, or do you think it's been updated or different over the years?
Well, the play that we did was definitely inspired by the movie and had songs from the movie, Somewhere Over the Rainbow and things like that.
Yeah, okay.
So no, I don't think it's the same play.
I wonder if anybody is still, I don't know, just be curious, like what is the latest version that was ever produced of this 1903 play? Like, did it endure?
Mm-hmm. And how much of it exists in the movie, right?
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I wonder if any of the songs are from the musical.
So I just looked it up because I didn't know. The 1903 Broadway musical The Wizard of Oz and the 1939 MGM film share a few character names and story ideas, but they are almost completely different works.
There you go.
The music is not the same. The Wizard of Oz, in its film version, was released in 1939 by MGM. The cultural impact of this movie was immeasurable. I mean, it's still impacting us
Huge.
today. But this iconic film wasn't the first cinematic version of this story. It was actually a remake. There were 2 silent film versions that predate the classic, one from 1910 and the other from 1925. But the 1939 movie made a splash for many reasons, one of them being the Technicolor transition from sepia to a fully saturated color.
Yeah, that's like one of the best moments of any movie ever created.
Yeah. And I'm going to nerd out about Technicolor a little bit because I went in a little bit of a rabbit hole about this because I was interested in it.
Oh, great.
So let's talk about
Lay it on me.
So the camera used was the Technicolor DF24 beam splitter motion picture camera. And there was actually, I say the camera, but there was many of these cameras used at the same time. And I went to the Academy Award, is that what it's called? The Academy Award Museum in LA. And they have a whole Wizard of Oz kind of artifact section.
Oh, it's very cool. Yes.
Yeah. And they have some of those cameras there. And they're huge. Like, you should look up the cameras because they're so different than cameras today, obviously. But it's cool. If you're ever in LA, I highly recommend that. But The Wizard of Oz was not the first movie made in color. That accolade belongs to a film called The World, the Flesh, and the Devil from 1914.
1914?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It used it wasn't Technicolor. It used something called Kinema with a K. Kinema color process. And I guess that footage is largely lost, which seems to be the case because of how, I don't know if this is the case, but a lot of early film footage that's lost is because of how flammable the chemicals were in film.
Oh, yeah.
The first Technicolor film was a short from 1917 called The Gulf Between. The first animated feature, which I know nobody asked, but it's a fun fact, with sound and color was Disney's Snow White from 1937. So Snow White with color came out 2 years before The Wizard of Oz. So color wasn't it wasn't every movie, but it wasn't, it was around.
Yeah, I'm sure it was expensive and...
Yeah. It's kind of the same thing with sound. Like the first movie with sound was The Jazz Singer from 1927, but there was it took a little bit of time before it kind of was broadly adapted because people were used to silent films and because,
they didn't want it yet.
Yeah, and it was expensive, to your point.
I think of the sort of rough CGI, fully CGI movies that we got to sort of lead us into what is now just animation.
Yeah.
And now looking back at those movies, they feel so dated at the time. And I remember being even a child and sitting through some of them and being like, do I like this? Do I like what this looks like? I don't know if I do.
Yeah.
But now it's everywhere. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I wonder, obviously animation is such a core, I feel like, for our childhood because so much of what we consumed as kids was animated. And then you feel like you grow up and you watch live action and Disney and Pixar and, all of these studios do so much animated. But I wonder, like, one of my big critiques, I think, with films that rely so heavily on CGI is that it doesn't age well.
Yeah, right.
Even if you watch The Lord of the Rings or some of these movies that were so groundbreaking 10 or 20 years ago, you're like, oh, it looks like a video game now. Like, it doesn't look like we've come so far beyond it. And it'll be interesting with AI and other technologies in this day and age. I don't know. I wonder how it will all work out.
Yeah, I know. Well, it goes to show how quickly technology advances, too.
Yeah.
Although you can't beat, even when you're watching an action movie from the 80s, they're not using any sort of computers. I mean, maybe they are. Fact check me. But they're relying largely on these sets and these huge scenery pieces that are basically the source of excitement that that's happening, that even when you watch those back, they feel a little bit more fun and authentic, genuine. I don't know.
This comes up with horror all the time because so much of horror, right? There's so many, you have to have either a practical effect or a special effect because you're trying to achieve something that's not possible in the normal world. You're trying to cut off somebody's head or whatever. And they could be very fun to watch, silly, bad horror movies, of course. But there's movies that use practical effects that age so much better, even if they're from the 60s or they're from the 40s, or than movies from the 90s that tried to use CGI. Like, you watch it back and you're kind of like, to your point about being authentic, I'm out. Like, I know that that's a movie, and I would much rather watch a practical effect version of that.
Wow, like, and talk about The Wizard of Oz versus like Oz and the Great and Powerful. What was that movie from, like, with Mila Kunis and
Oz the Great and Powerful from 2013.
Yeah. And right, and you compare how even the witches look in both of them. And it's almost not compare. I mean, I would much rather watch the Wizard of Oz movie.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I would much rather watch the original from the 30s. So MGM's first color film was The Uninvited Guest from 1924. And in 1938, a year before Oz was released, MGM actually won an honorary Academy Award for its use of color in the movie Sweethearts. But Oz was really the first movie to use color, like, for marketing, as a way to draw audiences, like a gimmick, right? And it was successful. Even though the film was released during the Great Depression, it's still, as we know, one of the greatest successes in all of cinema. Quoting from the Technicolor article by Ryan Lintelman, quote, "Technicolor wasn't a type of color film. Instead, it was a process in which a specially modified motion picture camera recorded the same scene through colored filters on 3 different strips of film. These strips were then processed separately and used to print colors onto each finished print of the film sent to theaters. If a movie studio wanted to make a film in Technicolor, it had to lease the company's unique movie cameras, as well as a team of 2 experts to help operate the complicated machine." End quote. The technology of the transition from sepia to color was something innovated for Oz specifically. This is one of my favorite fun facts about this movie. I'd be curious if this is new information for you. So they actually did this practically. There's a scene which I've now watched 100 times. When Dorothy, still in black and white sepia, right, she goes to open the door, and then she opens the door in Oz. Everything's color, and as she exits, she is in color. And we pick her up, right, in the world of color. This was done. This wasn't done in post-production by shooting half of this scene, because there's a continuous shot, right? There's no cut.
Right.
It wasn't done. It was done practically. They painted Judy Garland's stunt double in sepia. You only see her from behind, but she's wearing a fully painted sepia dress. They paint the set of the house, and it's just in the world, and they just shoot it normally.
Wow. No, I did not know that.
It's so cool.
That's so impressive.
Yeah, and when you go to watch it, you're like, oh, it's really quick. Like, it's one kind of shot right behind her head. You know, it's not, but it's so innovative and
that's cool
fascinating.
Problem solving.
Yeah, and they made such a cool, powerful effect. I'm going to quote from the Far Out magazine article by Jacob Simmons, quote, "Originally, the plan was to use a form of stencil printing in this scene, which would require the inside of the house to be manually tinted in every frame. This proved to be far too expensive and time-consuming, so the old switcheroo was used instead. It's ironic that, in a film praised for its use of color, great effect was made to remove the color from one of its most famous scenes. Thankfully, it paid off, as the sequence still looks incredible almost a century later. The rest of the Technicolor portions, which make up the bulk of the middle chunk of the movie, were an absolute nightmare. The painstaking process took over 6 months to film and took a serious toll on the cast." End quote. So now let's talk about the horrors of The Wizard of Oz.
What a good segue.
The technicality of filming in Technicolor isn't just interesting. It helps set the stage for the plight of this production. For instance, you need a lot of light to film in Technicolor. A lot of very, very, very bright light. According to Lintelman, MGM spent over $250,000 on electricity alone. For many years after production wrapped, the actors complained about vision damage from the bright lights on set. And many developed Keeling eyes on set, or kind of like pink and swollen eyes.
Oh, no.
People fainted often on set from heat. There were more than 150 36-inch overhead lights, which were always on at the same time. When it became too unbearable, production would shut down for a few hours at a time so that everybody could cool off. And this is in LA, right? So it's hot.
Already.
It's always hot.
Man,
yeah.
and I don't like overhead lights in my apartment, let alone
150.
intense overhead lights. Yeah.
Yeah. So because it was new technology, they had to like blast it with light, and lights are hot. Like film lights
Yeah.
are incredibly hot. And we're about to get into the makeup and the costumes that these actors were wearing, but it was a grueling, horrible set. The film was directed by Victor Fleming, also known for Treasure Island from 1934, Gone with the Wind, also from 1939, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1941. Fleming was actually the fourth director hired for the movie, the last to survive after the first three left the project for various reasons, and he ended up filming sort of the bulk of the film, but actors had to change, and so a lot of the first few I think the first 2 or 3 production weeks and everything they filmed had to be scrapped essentially.
Oh man.
It was just like everything about this was kind of a cursed production.
Yeah, already such turnover. That's not good.
It's not good. It's interesting that Fleming's 2 largest, most successful films, both films that impacted cinema history forever, came out in the same year. Fleming was described as, quote, violently pro-Nazi by Anne Revere. Now, Revere recanted her statements later, and the accuracy of her initial statement has been disputed by other people who knew Fleming. So there's some sort of chatter that maybe she said that because she was upset about casting or something that happened, and that he made some kind of like offhand comment about like, the UK being unable to survive Germany in the World War. But it wasn't that he was, a supporter of the Nazi Party, but that was a rumor.
Seems like a jump. Yeah.
That was circulating for a while about him. Fleming owned the Moraga Estate in Los Angeles, which at the time was a horse ranch. He often hosted Clark Gable, John Barrymore, Ingrid Bergman, Judy Garland, Spencer Tracy, Laurence Olivier, Vivien Leigh, and more of the Hollywood elite. And as we know, The Wizard of Oz famously stars Judy Garland. Garland, who was only 16 during production, was given stimulants and sleeping pills to regulate her energy and keep her thin. But sadly, and contrary to popular belief, this actually was not the first time that Garland had been given pills. And these pills were known in the industry at the time as pep pills. According to Gerald Clark's biography, Get Happy, The Life of Judy Garland, Garland's mother, Ethel Gum, started giving her daughter pills at the age of 9.
Oh, good.
And spoiler alert, she was addicted to pills until they took her life when she was 47 years old. So her entire life, for 40 years practically, she was addicted to these pills because she was given them when she was 9. Oz wasn't Garland's only film for MGM. During her contract there, she actually appeared in 24 MGM movies, starting in 1936 when she was only 14. The film, which was called Pigskin Parade, was a musical and a comedy about football coaches. The studio was hypercritical of Garland's weight, and executive Louis B. Mayer reportedly referred to as, quote, fat little pig with pigtails, end quote.
This was her at 14.
At 14.
Wow. And a little sidebar, a musical about football.
Who was that for?
Yeah, not interested.
Garland was put on a very limited diet that was closely monitored by studio executives. The first of several times that this happened during her career. Her diet was chicken soup, cottage cheese, black coffee, cigarettes, and diet pills. Yum.
Wow. Yeah. That's all the food groups, I think.
If this isn't quite enough chaotic horror and history content to scratch your itch, consider joining our Patreon. We have a ton of fun creating bonus episodes, writing essays that explore some of our favorite horror topics, and presenting spooky classic literature. Plus, all new members get a welcome package in the mail, a lifetime discount to our merch store, and new stickers whenever we have new designs to share. Head to patreon.com/lunaticsproject to join. During the production of Oz, memos were sent between studio executives monitoring Judy's food intake. By the time production ended on The Wizard of Oz, Judy was fully addicted to barbiturates and amphetamines. Garland co-starred in many films with Mickey Rooney, who was also forced to take pep pills. Quoting from Judy herself, as she told biographer Paul Donnelly, quote, "They had us working days and nights on end. They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted. Then they'd take us to the studio hospital and knock us out with sleeping pills. Mickey sprawled out on one bed and me on another. Then, after 4 hours, they'd wake us up and give us the pep pills again so we could work 72 hours in a row. Half of the time we were hanging from the ceiling, but it was also a way of life for us, end quote. On top of the pills and diet monitoring, the studio controlled Garland's body in another way during the production of Oz. Judy was forced to wear corsets, and they strapped down her breasts in order to make her appear younger than she was. Because the character is meant to be...
9.
9, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is how that character is portrayed in every other version of Oz.
Yeah, and they were considering Shirley Temple then, too, right? It was kind of between them.
Yeah, and Shirley Temple would have been 11 in 1939. So that would have been a more age-appropriate, for the way that the role was written. Of course, I wouldn't want Shirley Temple to go through as an 11-year-old, but Judy Garland did, but yeah. I'm not wishing that on her. She was also famously slapped by director Victor Fleming for giggling on set. Now, there are different versions of this story, but it was well known that Judy adored Bert Lahr, who played the Cowardly Lion. Bert had been a vaudeville performer, and Judy thought he was warm and hilarious. Like, she had kind of a special friendship with him. And there was this scene they were filming, right, where the group meets the Cowardly Lion for the first time, and, right, he's scary, and then he cries and all that. And she couldn't get over it. Like, she thought it was the funniest thing, and she would burst out laughing every time he would go to cry because, he was a very famous vaudeville performer, and he was very good at what he was doing. Well, director Victor Fleming was frustrated by this. The production was behind schedule and over budget. There was a lot of eyes on this project.
And a lot of very bright lights on the project.
A lot of lights, yeah. Tempers were running high. So eventually he took Judy behind one of the set trees and slapped her on the face. She did not laugh in the next take. Now, there's some versions of this that, I think paint him as more of an angry person, and then some that this was sort of a gentle tactic that he very thoughtfully, whatever. But I'll say this. Afterwards, Victor said out loud that his number 2, some other guy on set, should punch him in the face for what he did to her. Like, he immediately was like, you should punch me for that. And Judy overheard this and said that she would rather kiss him on the nose instead.
Wow.
So,
if it's either or...
she chose
the nose.
She rose above in the way that Victor didn't.
Yeah, it goes to show, just give pills to 9-year-olds and they'll grow up just fine.
Yeah, that's right. It's hard to imagine that despite being constantly fed uppers and downers, only eating soup, cottage cheese, and coffee, and being forced into body-modifying shapewear, Judy Garland, at the age of 16, was still able to give one of the most iconic performances in classic film history. A testament to her talents, despite the horrible and abusive working conditions that she endured. There's also, this is a little bit of a side quest, but there's also a very strange coincidence that I think we need to talk about. According to the History.com article, so Baum's coat, so the original writer of 1900 novel, his coat was accidentally used in the movie.
Accidentally.
The wardrobe department was looking for the perfect costume for the Professor Marvel character, right? They were looking for a very specific coat and kind of racking through all of the options at thrift stores. According to the movie's publicist, Mary Mayer, they wanted grandeur gone to seed, a tattered version of a once beautiful coat, right? So they finally found the perfect jacket, a black Prince Albert velvet coat with a purple collar. And on set, the actor Frank Morgan, who played Professor Marvel, kind of between sets on a hot day, took it off and turned the collar inside out and saw that L Frank Baum's name was written within. After an investigation, the production confirmed with the tailor who made the coat and Baum's widow that it was actually his.
That's spooky.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's pretty... that's pretty strange.
But there's a lot of other wardrobe-related issues that were not quite so charming. Actor Bert Lahr, who played the lion, had to wear a costume that was made from a real lion's hide.
Oh,
Yeah, not great. The costume also weighed close to 90 pounds. The actor struggled with the weight and the lack of ventilation. Lahr would sweat so badly that the costume would need to be dried at the end of each filming day. Because remember, in these bright lights that people are passing out actively and all the time, he's in a 90-pound costume that's made of real lion's hide.
yeah, he's wearing a lion. Yeah.
It's horrifying. For a period of time, the actor wasn't allowed to eat solid food on set because his makeup took too long to reapply. Finally, after eating only milkshakes and soup, he requested that his makeup just be redone after lunch, and they agreed to that.
That seems fair.
Like, oh my God, why is the default that we'll just have to
You can't eat.
endure? Yeah.
Although soup and milkshakes
Hey,
sounds pretty nice.
what a life.
Yeah.
But the Tin Man costume was equally problematic. It was almost impossible to sit down while wearing the costume. The actor had to lean against a board if he wanted to rest because he couldn't bend his knees, so he was just kind of stuck vertically.
Method acting.
But even worse, the silver paint caused such a bad allergic reaction in actor Buddy Ebsen that he was rushed to the hospital and the character was recast to Jack Haley. So that was one of the big resets of the production. I mean, he had like a near-death reaction to the silver paint.
Yeah. And I mean, you're in that silver paint
A lot.
a lot.
For months, yeah. I mean, nowadays, right, you film a movie, it takes about like, I mean, it depends on the movie, but just from when Alan goes away on movie shoots, 5 weeks. This took 6 months.
So long.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing a lot of things manually too.
Of course.
So.
The technology is much different. But
Yeah.
It's quite the, and this director he came out with The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind the same year, like 2 epic movies.
Yeah, that's kind of those are 2 movies that have really stood the test of time that people still love. And they came out the same. I didn't realize it's the same year.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
I wonder which one was it. Gone with the Wind that won the Academy Award?
Yeah.
Must have been, right?
Yeah. I mean, right?
I mean, I would have voted for Oz. Let's see. It was the 11th Academy Awards in 1939.
11.
They used to be hosted at the Biltmore Hotel. Oh, wait. Hang on. Do I need to look at 1940? It was the 12th Academy
It was
Awards.
It was the 12.
Let's see. Who won? Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Better luck next time.
Yeah.
The green copper paint worn by Margaret Hamilton portraying the Wicked Witch of the West was also an issue. The actor actually suffered from 2nd and 3rd degree burns after filming the fire scene. So there's a scene where Margaret disappears into a cloud of smoke through a trapdoor, which we all know and love. But the effect in, one of the takes went off too soon. According to an MGM inter-office memo, she suffered from 1st degree burns on her face and 2nd degree on her hands. Usually, like what they would typically do is apply a salve, which would be applied. But because her makeup contained copper and was toxic, it had to be removed first. She later described it as the worst pain of her life. And there's this quote about this, that she describes how she just had to like sit and endure it. Like she just had to wait for this makeup to be removed. And it was just like sitting in the biggest pain and discomfort of her life. And she was still pretty scarred by it.
Yeah, that is a worst nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, first, a scarecrow chasing you across a field, that's a nightmare, A.
Yeah.
But getting burned and then having to wait to take off makeup to then get relief sounds horrible. At work.
Horrible. Like I literally was lighting a candle yesterday with a lighter and it burned my thumb. And I was like, well, I guess I'm done for the day.
Yeah. Ow. Oh, time for bed.
Oh, that's it.
Nothing good can happen after this.
But don't think, Alex, that the Scarecrow got off without any costume incidents.
Oh, no.
Not quite as bad, though. Ray Bolger also suffered from deep marks and furrows on his skin from the makeup. Like the hay and, indented so deeply in his body that he was left kind of with scarring for a while.
Wow. Such issues with all this makeup.
Yeah, who was in charge of the hair and makeup team?
Well, hopefully they didn't win an Academy Award.
There have been rumors that the snow used on set was actually asbestos, but in reality, crushed gypsum was used for the snow. Quoting from the History.com article, quote, asbestos was, however, used in another part of the movie. In the scene where the Wicked Witch of the West lights the Scarecrow, Ray Bolger, on fire, the actor wore a version of his costume made from asbestos. Quoting within the quote, men with wet blankets and fire extinguishers stood out of camera range in case of a mishap, Stillman says. Continuing his quote, every time the Scarecrow moved, Bolger recalled, the straw sprouting from holes in his costume had to be rearranged to exactly match the previous shot, end quote. End all quotes. There was also prejudice on set against the little people who played the Munchkins. For reference, Toto was paid more, $125 a week, than any of the cast of the Munchkins. Garland made about $500 a week on set. Ray Bolger and Jack Haley were paid $3,000 a week.
Oh.
So there was some pay inequality happening across the board.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why was Toto even being paid? Like, crazy.
That is crazy to me.
Yeah. But let's talk about the rumor that most of us have heard. That one of the actors playing a Munchkin on set hanged themselves, which you can see in the background of a shot. The truth is, for a very long time, you could only see The Wizard of Oz when it played on TV, right? Now that there are remastered, on-demand versions, you can slow down the footage and see what's actually a very large bird taking flight.
It is a bird.
It is a bird. And to your point about it not being either, it's because, and I did this too, I would try to watch it when it was playing. The quality at the time when we were young watching this was so bad, you couldn't make it out.
Mm-hmm.
But when it was remastered and now that we could like pause our TV, you could see that it's a bird more clearly. But at the time, it was just a smudge. Like you could see something moving, but you couldn't really identify what it was.
Did you ever think it was a Munchkin?
Yes.
Okay, you did. You saw it.
I saw it and I was like, yeah, there
Totally.
it is. Yeah. But I'm also someone who like very easily believes things. I'm very gullible and don't question things enough. I'm working on it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's half of you that's like, oh, some sort of like exciting scandal. Some sort of exciting scandal of a beloved children's movie.
Yeah.
I mean, right? There's
even
nothing
then
better.
I was looking for the horror in it all.
Yeah.
But Alex, you might ask, why is there a large bird on set?
Oh, I guess that is the next question.
There were actually over 300 birds on set that Fleming rented from the Los Angeles Zoo. Quoting from the History.com article, quote, according to MGM Publicity, the studio, quote-unquote, rented 300 birds from the Los Angeles Zoo so that Fleming, the director du jour, could select a few to be in the background of the apple orchard scene. These birds included golden pheasants, a South American toucan, a saurus crane, and an African crane, one of which can be seen in the film. When Dorothy, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man skip down the yellow brick road, a saurus crane makes its presence known by spreading its wings, Stillman says. However, over the years, people mistook the movement of the crane for something much darker. Since the 1970s, there's been a rumor of a stagehand wandering into the background of one movie scene, he explains. In recent times, that myth has become a munchkin hanging from a tree. But Stillman says that a bird is behind the confusion. Besides, it's simply not possible that none of the over 50 staff behind the camera would have ignored anything ill-fated, he adds.
I guess that really does answer that. I mean, there was plenty of people on set, and wouldn't they just use another take?
And it would be headline city if it had happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, like that does seem particularly salacious.
Yeah, and we could debunk it. So production obviously was difficult, to say the least. It was abusive in some ways. Everybody was incredibly stressed and under a ton of pressure. It was hot. It was plagued with disaster and different costume malfunctions. Right? It was difficult, but I also am, wonder, but beyond the bright light, how much of that is unique to this movie versus filmmaking at the time.
For Hollywood.
Yeah, and maybe part of it is like the costumes and the makeup were, creating a fantasy movie, I think was new-ish, but still, there was a lot of stuff that was happening all of the time on movies like this that were horrifying. But the contents of Oz itself is something I want to talk about briefly because, again, I think pretty much everybody knows The Wizard of Oz. One of my, family connections to it is that my dad was so afraid from his own childhood of the flying monkeys that he refused to watch it with us growing up. Like he had no interest in watching it. But I will say he has seen Wicked Part 1 and he survived those monkeys, which I think are much scarier.
They certainly are more scary.
Yeah. But this film also does so much, and I'm not saying this to be glib, but like think about the symbol of Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West in this movie. Her hat, everything about the way she's portrayed becomes iconic after this, especially when we're thinking about witches. And, you know, the hat and all that is in the broom and everything is not like, this is not the origination of these witches elements. But like, I think it takes the lore around something like witchcraft, right? And brings it into one of the most famous films of all time. And that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is like the caricature of the witch is sort of permanently imprinted, and in this childhood movie, in this children's movie, that then, I mean, it's everything. It's the stockings, it's her shoes, up to her dress, her hat. It's like all of the pieces are pretty much there, that you're just like, yes, that's what a witch looks like.
Yeah.
And then it's easy to replicate that afterwards.
Yeah. And so much of this movie, like, it also dabbles in the occult with Professor Marvelous and his crystal ball. And of course, he's whitewashing like a Romani fortune teller, but that's, you know, he's not unique to that. That's something that happened a lot at that time period.
And he's a con artist anyway. So
yeah,
that's exactly what he's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of spooky stuff in this movie. Like, it's not just, it's a children's movie, but, you know, it's interesting because my dad, right, was really scared of it. Like, I think, grew up probably watching this and had seen enough other content around the time that it didn't, at least for me, like, embed within me, right? It felt aged, even if it felt classic. But for my dad, you know, when he grew up many years before me, it was horrifying. It was a scary movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's still true. I mean, it is.
Yeah, true.
It is. There are parts of it that are scary and on purpose, right?
Yeah. When her guards even, right? Like, there's something very, I think they do a really good job at creating real fear in those moments.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a mistake that they all like march in unison and all are like saying the same, you know, like they're humming the strange song, and they're kind of reminiscent of another like, you know, like Nazism and all of that that's brewing, if not like fully happening.
Totally.
As far as like the war or anything, but
yeah, very true.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. So the novel, right, the source material, The Wizard of Oz, has been depicted in other film versions of the story. Perhaps the most notable for a long time was Return to Oz from 1985. And you read the books, right? So this, I believe, Return to Oz is based on the third book.
Yeah,
Ozmas.
Yeah, Ozma of Oz, right?
Yeah. Do you remember much about... Have you seen Return to Oz? Do you remember much about the books?
I've seen Return to Oz. Oh, yeah. That is a horror movie. That straight up is not for children. I feel. What I remember from that the most is the heads, the hall of heads.
Yeah.
That was particularly upsetting.
Which is based on the source material. Which is, again, why I'm like, you guys read these books. They are wild.
Totally. Yeah, I remember them, and I remember the chicken.
What is the chicken?
The chicken's her, like, companion.
Oh.
It's like her
her Toto.
Her Toto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like that. All the books do become a little bit like, oh, here's all the pieces. All, like, let's jumble them up and get like, some new characters into it. But, like, the chicken's the new Toto. Particularly, you know, she's a little like sassy.
Yeah.
Chicken.
Yeah. That's kind of fun. Return to Oz was released by Disney, and it's a dark fantasy, which is set 6 months after the events of the first movie. The film was written and directed by Walter Murch. Murch is primarily known for being a film editor and sound designer. He's worked on some major Hollywood films: American Graffiti, Apocalypse Now, all 3 of the Godfather movies, Ghost, The English Patient, and the restoration of Touch of Evil, just to name a few. He's been nominated for 6 Editing Academy Awards and 3 for sound design. Return to Oz was the only time that Murch ever directed a movie. I find this could be like a deep dive for another day, but I find it interesting. There's a few cases, and some that have come up recently when we were doing the Friday the 13th series, and some in like Pumpkinhead, for instance, where there's a few times where you get like a movie that becomes a cult classic maybe, but it was made by somebody in film. In those other cases, like special effects guys that then directed something, and you can kind of see that. And I think that's true with Return to Oz. Like, it's weird, and it relies on a lot of like sound design and visual stuff that I think Murch, as somebody who does sound design and editing, was able to sort of uniquely bring to that.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, the fact that he didn't direct anything else makes you wonder, was this a passion project? Was this something that he was really excited about? I mean, how could you not be? Another Wizard of Oz movie? Like, that seems pretty exciting to, sink your teeth into, especially as a special effects person.
And I don't say this is going to sound derogatory, and I don't mean it like that. But it's sort of like watching a movie, I feel like that's made by somebody who specializes in a different part of film. It sort of sometimes feels like when Ringo wrote the song, where it's like, oh, this movie is a little bit different from other movies, and it's not bad, but it's like a little bit different. It's through a different lens.
Yeah, a different voice, a different perspective. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like they're usually like headier. I don't know, just like a little bit more visually like focused.
It certainly didn't feel as digestible as The Wizard of Oz, perhaps. Yeah. Well, I don't even know if you could say that. I don't know if, like, at the end of The Wizard of Oz, they look back on it and they're like, what did we do? I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it feels like maybe it was for fans of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, totally. And maybe for those who read the books.
Yeah.
Return to Oz is based on the novels by L. Frank Baum, primarily, again, on Ozma of Oz, which is the third book in the series. Except Oz is now a wasteland. The citizens are stone. The scarecrow is in captivity, and there are dark forces afoot. Dorothy ends up teaming up with a new cast of characters to attempt to defeat the wicked Gnome King and restore the magic and beauty of Oz. Ozma of Oz, along with most of the Oz books, are freaky. The book and movie feature an evil princess who swaps heads and keeps a room full of heads. Notably, Dorothy is much younger in this movie than the original. The actress playing Dorothy was about 10, which again is age appropriate for the character. So let's talk about the ruby slippers really quickly. The ruby slippers are from the movie The Wizard of Oz. They are not from the source material. And as such, Disney, as the production company behind Return to Oz, had to get permission from MGM to use them sparingly in Return to Oz because they're canon to the movie and not the original books.
That's why in Wicked, the stage show, they're silver shoes.
Yeah.
Also.
Fascinating. I love these little kind of like Hollywood tidbits that you're like, oh, that's why that's silver. Okay, so speaking of Wicked, we're going to put a pin in this conversation because there's been so much to say, and come back next week and continue talking about the dark lore and history of The Wizard of Oz, but this time through the lens of Wicked. Obviously, there's many other film versions. There's so many different versions and adaptations of Oz out there. We're just talking about the hits,
Nothing but the hits.
That's right. Alex, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's so fun to talk to you. And we will be back next week. Thank you guys so much for listening. Talk to you soon.
Ta-ta.
Bye. Looking for even more creepy content? Consider joining our Patreon for way more content just like this, including bonus episodes and very special deep dives. You can also join us on Discord if you want to stay involved in the conversation, and find our video content on YouTube, TikTok, or Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you like to get your social updates. And of course, head to lunaticsproject.com where you'll find our very, very spooky merch and links to everything you need to know.
Are you upset by our egregious fabrication of facts? Tell us about it on Discord.